These were the reasons that why gold backed fixed exchange rate system failed. US ने कहा कि we are not going to convert dollar into gold. तो जब डॉलर को गोल्ड में कन्वर्ट नहीं करेंगे तो फिर वो सिस्टम आगे चल नहीं सकता. दूसरा रीजन था इंटरनेशनल ऑयल क्राइसिस. International oil crisis took part. It happened in the early portion of 1970s. What happened during that time? There was a little war between Egypt, backed by Gulf countries, and Israel, backed by US and UK, in which Israel defeated Egypt, and the war was over the ownership of Suez Canal. Do you know Suez Canal? The Panama Canal है world में और एक Suez Canal. Suez Canal is very strategic kind of canal. Why it is strategic? Because Suez Canal connects Red Sea with Mediterranean Ocean, and it reduces the distance of Southeast Asia from Western Europe by almost 10,000 miles. So that is the importance of, and the ships or vessels which go through Suez Canal, they pay hefty fee to the authority which controls Suez Canal. And earlier it was Egypt, but now it is a kind of colosseum of countries which control Suez Canal, and the revenue is shared between those countries. So then there was a war over the ownership of that. And in light of the defeat of Middle East countries, they were angered by the involvement of US support to Israel. So that's why they also stopped receiving payment of oil export in dollars. So, and that time there is an association which we call as OPEC. OPEC is oil producers and exporting countries, as a Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. So what they did, they convinced all other members that we are not going to accept payment in US dollar, but in any other currency like Deutschmark, the currency of Germany, or French franc, the currency of France. They are not going to accept payment in US dollar. So there was this crisis which has, because you were making reserves, you were having reserves of US dollar, but those countries they declined to take payment in dollar. So this has resulted in another crisis which we call as liquidity crisis, international liquidity crisis, and this crisis happened because of international oil crisis, which we also call as international oil crisis. Liquidity crisis is a broader term than oil crisis. Oil crisis happened only during that year. Liquidity is a general term. When we talk in terms of domestic context, what do we mean by liquidity? Liquidity of a firm. Liquidity of a firm or a company. What do we mean by that?
Ability to make.
How aptly its current assets are matched with current liabilities. If we are able to divide current assets into various components, and if 90% of current assets are inventory is a block fund. It is not a very liquid asset. And if your 90% of current obligations are liquid liability, then there is a mismatch and there will be short-term liquidity crisis. So all countries for last 20 years since 1950s, they were maintaining their reserves in US dollar. And suddenly due to that war, the Gulf countries or OPEC countries, they denied to receive or make payment in US dollar. So सबने तो US dollar जेब में रखा था, and suddenly US dollar was not acceptable. US dollar was not acceptable to them. So there was a crisis which we know as international oil crisis, which culminated in the year 1972-73 with the formation of a new kind of currency which we know as SDR, Special Drawing Rights. This SDR is a book kind of currency. It is not a paper currency. It is simply a book arrangement. SDR, Special Drawing Rights. It is currency of International Monetary Fund. International Monetary Fund. Now SDR was adopted or formed to address two issues. One issue was to stabilize the exchange rate volatility. Why there was volatility in the exchange rate? Now since US printed US dollar unproportionately with the gold reserve. So what happened? There was huge depreciation of US dollar. If there is inflation in one currency, proportionate, there is more inflation in one currency, then that currency tend to depreciate more in comparison to other currency where there is less incidence of inflation. For instance, rate appreciation or depreciation? Do you understand the meaning of appreciation and depreciation of currency? Like $1 is equal to 70 rupees 2 days back. Now $1 is equal to 70.5. Now which currency has appreciated and which currency has depreciated? Dollar has appreciated because now you are going to have 50 paisa more against $1. Okay. So what happened during that? We are seeing the impact of inflation on appreciation or depreciation of a currency. So to measure that, we need to consider the assumption of two countries. Let's suppose two countries are US and India. And in which country actually the inflation is more? Actually, in which country the inflation is more? India. The rate of inflation is approximately 6-7% in India, and in US 1 to 2%. So let us assume that in US the inflation is 5% and in India it is 10%. And with this, the exchange rate is 70 rupees equal to $1. Now let's suppose there is a bottle of mineral water, or let's suppose this is a pen which is costing $1 in US and 70 rupee in India. So on the basis of purchasing power, we have established exchange rate between US dollar and Indian currency. On what basis? Purchasing power of the currency. So purchasing power of 70 rupees is equal to 1 pen in India, and in US $1 is equal to 1 pen. So the same pen. Our assumption is that same pen, it is costing $1 in US and in India it is costing 70 rupees. So exchange rate will be equal to $1 equal to 70 rupees. $1 equal to 70 rupees. Now after inflation, what will happen? This pen in US will be costing $1.05. In India, since inflation rate is more, so it means it will be costing 77 rupees. 10% is the rate of inflation in India. Now new exchange rate on the basis of purchasing power of the currency will be $1.05 equal to 77 rupees. So it means $1 is equal to how many rupees? 73. So 70 means the Indian currency has depreciated in comparison to the earlier exchange rate. Why? There is an incidence of higher inflation rate in Indian currency. So it means that we draw a corollary from it. That is that higher inflation in a currency causes depreciation in that currency. So the currency in which there is higher inflation, it will depreciate with the passage of time. And the currency in which there is lesser inflation, it will appreciate with the passage of time. So this is what we have proved with this example. So what US did, US started printing currencies, US dollar, to meet the global demand of US dollar. And because of that, there was higher inflation in US economy. And that higher inflation in US economy caused depreciation of US dollar. And because of depreciation of US dollar, the value of dollar started going down. And if any currency is depreciating, it means its value is going up or down. It is going down. So US dollar value started going down because of higher inflation. Why there was more inflation? Because the US Federal Reserve Bank was printing more and more currencies to meet global demand of US dollar. Okay? And ultimately what the resultant would be? If your currency and the currency which was so-called global currency, which every member country used to fix the value of their currency, if it starts losing its value, then what will be the pressure on your own currency? There will be a growing pressure on your own currency. How long you are going to fix the value of your currency against the currency which is losing its value? So there was a problem in that, and because of this region, this is the one region. So this resulted in kind of crisis which we call as exchange rate volatility. Exchange rate volatility. If one currency value is going down, no other currency cannot remain aloof from the decrease in the value of one prominent currency. So this resulted in the volatility of the exchange rate, foreign exchange market. So there was extreme volatility. The member countries who have fixed the value of their currency against US dollar, they were facing a lot of pressure on balance of payment and balance of trade. Okay, and the second problem was the international liquidity crisis. International liquidity crisis means the currency which you are maintaining, it is not acceptable for receiving or making payment, as what I have given example of international oil prices. So this SDR has taken care of that, and in the early part of 1970s, that system also failed. That is gold backed fixed exchange rate system, which we know by another name as Bretton Woods system. And then came the flexible exchange rate system, what we are observing nowadays. We also call it as free flow. Free flow. There is also free flow doesn't mean that everything is being left on demand and supply. Free flow means depending on the demand and supply of foreign exchange, the rates are determined. If there is more export, then what will happen to the exchange rate? If India is exporting more to US than what it is importing, then what will be the impact on exchange rate? Will US dollar appreciate or depreciate? It will depreciate. It will depreciate because there will be more inflow of US dollar in Indian economy. So US dollar will depreciate. So it is not left only on to that, because exchange rate volatility is very, very critical to the economy. You know what happens? Your stock market may go up and down. You are not directly correlated with that. But once exchange rate is going up and down, steeply, there is high rate of volatility in that. Every individual of the country is affected from it. Can you give example? Any example? Please. So that they can also speak. An example where extreme volatility in the foreign exchange market affects an individual of a country. Extreme volatility. And I am saying everyone, our population out of 1.5 billion minus 40 billion, 40 lakhs who are not covered in asset, everyone is affected. For instance, take an example. Crude oil prices, they are directly linked with exchange rate volatility. If Indian currency will depreciate, then it means crude oil prices will go up or down. It will go up. Means you have to pay more Indian currency to get $1. The payment in dollar terms is constant, but since rupee value is going down in dollar terms, it means you have to pay more number of Indian currency to get the same dollar. So it means that crude oil import will become costly. And if that will become costly, means it will affect everyone. And most of the things in Indian economy is dependent on crude oil, because crude oil is used in agriculture, in industrial sector, in service sector, everywhere you go, crude oil is necessary. So that's what I said. Exchange rate volatility is so much critical for any economy, for any government, that it cannot be aloof from it. It cannot leave exchange rate volatility on only market forces. So that's why many times RBI intervenes. If exchange rate is moving up and down steeply beyond a limit, which the government is thinking that it is against the interest of common people. So it may intervene by selling or purchasing foreign currency. RBI, Reserve Bank of India. But not deliberately every time you are maintaining exchange rate in your favor so that you can establish your economy and you can destroy others' economy. What China is doing. So our more or less the monetary system which we are following, it is managed flow. Managed flow means there is a volatility peg that if the exchange rate is moving within a range of plus minus 5% in a day, we are not going to intervene in the market. RBI will not intervene in the market. But if the exchange rate volatility is beyond this limit, plus minus 5%, then RBI will intervene so that things cannot go out of control. Okay? So this system is called as managed flow. But what China is following, every time it devaluates its own currency. Why? To remain competitive in international market. If your currency is not depreciating, actually the Chinese yuan, it is one of the most sought after currency in the world, because China exports more than what imports. China exports more than what it imports. So it means its currency is a strong currency. Its currency is a strong currency, and the foreign currency is a weaker currency. Like US dollars should have a weak tendency against Chinese yuan. But normally what happens that we see because of the policy against US dollar because of the intervention of People's Republic Bank of China. Every time the currency appreciates, it deliberately devaluates the currency. So this kind of system we call as dirty flow. The deliberate intervention of the central bank of a country to devaluate its currency or revaluate. Opposite of devaluation is revaluation. Deliberately to distort economic activity. Then we call it as dirty flow. So managed flow, there is a difference between managed flow and dirty flow. Because if China is not going to devaluate its currency, then there will be a great effect on its export. And Chinese economy is export-driven economy. Chinese economy is an export-driven economy. Now there are many countries in the world, like we call them as tax havens, where they don't put restriction on flow of funds. Any amount of funds can enter their country, any amount of funds can go outside the country. They don't put any restriction on them. So those countries, they fix the value of their currency against any other prominent currency. Against any other prominent currency. Or there are many countries in the world which they don't have any separate legal tender. Separate legal tender means they don't have their own currency. Indian currency is separate legal tender of India. US dollar is separate legal tender of US. So there are many countries in the world like Afghanistan, or there are some countries of sub-Saharan Africa which they don't have their own separate legal tender. So how they fix the value of their currency? They don't have their own currency. So what they did, they are following other countries' currency. They are circulating other countries' currency in their market. So it might be US dollar, some prominent currency they have used. US dollar or currencies of European countries like GBP or Euro. So that is also one monetary system which is being followed nowadays. So this is